there are mixed reactions to the Andrew Holness administration in Jamaica appointment of business mogul Michael Lee Chin as the country's growth czar. Mr. Chin will chair the newly established Economic Growth Council (ECG). Mr. Chin's appointment was made public on Wednesday. We have more in this report from Leslie Ann Sherwood.
Business mogul Michael Lee Chin has been selected as Jamaica's growth czar. The Andrew Holness administration says Mr. Chin's appointment is in keeping with the administration's policy to aggressively pursue growth and transform the country's economic fortunes. Mr. Lee Chin will chair the government's Economic Growth Council (EGC). That body will provide the government with a framework of initiatives that will lead to economic development. Economist Dr. Adrian Stokes says Mr. Chin's appointment is welcomed. He believes the prominent businessman, who is also the chairman of Jamaica's largest commercial bank, NCB, will provide a wealth of knowledge to the government.
From my perspective, I think it's always a good thing when you can get high-caliber persons involved in the management of the country's affair. And Mr. Lee Chin will bring a lot of positives to the post. I think, however, the government needs to ensure that the mandate of the council is very clear, and that there are clear rules or procedures around how the council engages the government agencies that will be executing on the ground. So that would be the only concern that I have. But, you know, when you get persons of the caliber of Mr. Lee Chin being engaged in driving economic policy, I think that's a positive for the country.
Already, Mr. Chin has set an ambitious target of achieving a GDP growth rate of 5% over the next 4 years. Dr. Stokes says that could be a challenging target.
From where I sit, it will be difficult to get up to that level of growth rate, given where we're coming from. So one needs to see the analysis behind that projection. However, having said that, given Jamaica's low productivity base, it means that we have a lot of room to grow. And therefore, once we start to move the growth needle, then we should be able to travel at fairly high rates. But having said that, I mean, there are a number of things that we need to do to get to that level of growth. And the question is how quickly the government and the council can move some of those obstacles to growth in the economy.
Meanwhile, Vice President of the Jamaica Confederation of Trade Unions, JCTU, Helene Davis-White, shares a different view. She argues that Mr. Chin's success in the banking industry doesn't necessarily guarantee economic success for the country.
Undoubtedly, that is the thinking, but we have found that that is not necessarily so, because what goes into making a successful company or a good business decision is not necessarily a good decision in terms of the economy of our country, because the economy of our country is not only about the figures as such, but how it is that the individuals will be affected by your decisions. And so the social aspects are an important consideration when you are making economic decisions for our country. And so this is why we are saying that we don't necessarily buy into the notion that a successful entrepreneur or a successful businessman will necessarily convert to somebody who may be successful at getting economic growth for the country.
In the meantime, financial analyst Dr. Adrian Stokes believes that there are critical areas that can drive well-needed growth. He's suggesting that more focus be placed on agro-processing.
How do you get better linkage between the agricultural sector and the hotel sector in particular? For example, can we get our hotels to buy more local produce? Can we move up the chain in terms of moving to agro-processing in Jamaica? And, you know, given that agriculture employs a number of Jamaicans, in fact, it is the largest employer of labor in Jamaica, then obviously, you know, if you are able to move the needle there, it will have a fairly significant impact on growth in the short term. So I'm very interested to see how they will tackle that one.
I'm Leslie Ann Sherwood for CEEN Caribbean News.